And you know what? Good for you, Olivia Wilde. Let's go back to her just for a second, Mia, because she did Booksmart, which was genius. She did Don't Worry, Darling, which didn't work. She got ruined by the press. She had the gall and the gumption and the talent and the risk to do this picture, which was like four people in a room, and she played a married character whose marriage is on the rocks. That takes I wouldn't say balls. That takes vagina. That takes real heart. She did this, and she plays a broken character, and she directed it, and she helped edit it in London for 6 months, and she gives up the glory to these other actors. She is a director to watch. I am telling you, we have not seen the end of her. This was an amazing picture. Booksmart was amazing. She has what Greta Gerwig wishes she had a tenth of, and you can put me on the record, Mia, for saying that.
He's got to take it out.
Welcome to summer 2026 on season 2 of Do You See What I Mean? Listener Mia has prepared a great episode about the new Olivia Wilde picture called The Invite. We're going to cover just a couple of headlines, and then we're going to dive into this very interesting, very surprising, and very entertaining movie right after this on Do You See What I Mean?
Hi. Hi, come in.
Nice to see you.
We are so happy you're here.
Are we expecting people? Can we put curtains on this window? I don't like how they can see into our apartment. This shirt, it's nice. It looks really good on you.
Well, you could tell me that once in a while.
Take them off?
I don't give a fuck if you take your shoes off.
For me, no gluten, no dairy, no meat, no sugar.
We just wanted to see the apartment.
Why do I feel like everyone knows something except for me? Just to be clear. You, her, and me.
Yes.
Me too.
Yes, also you.
All right, Mia, this week we're not going to talk too much about the headlines because this movie has so much to talk about, and I'm so glad that you made me see it. We're going to talk about that later.
I was like, wait, I gotta remind you.
I know.
You did not want to see this, and you were like, I'm not a Seth Rogen guy. And I'm like, who's a Seth Rogen guy? Like, I don't know.
Really not a Seth Rogen guy. And even in the first 10 minutes, I wasn't sure if I was going to be seated next to you after 90 or 120 minutes, but I was so glad that I saw it. We had an absolute blast, and I loved how much you were entertained too. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but nobody's laugh in this movie theater was better or bigger than yours for this movie. It was awesome.
It has two tracks. It has two tracks.
It does have two tracks. We're going to talk about that. Really, the only major headline, because we're kind of in a little lull, looking at the cinematic calendar for 2026, the big pictures of the summer are always Disclosure Day and The Odyssey. This podcast is not waiting for bated breath with Spider-Man 28 or whichever one it is. The trailer for Disclosure Day didn't look that great, and then the picture wasn't that great. The trailer for The Odyssey, we've talked about it on this podcast, Mia. It looked something looks off about it, but I will tell you...
It's a different type of movie, though,
It's
because everybody's familiar with its story.
Right.
So you get a different trailer when you're kind of just redoing something, or giving something people are familiar with. I was telling you this the other day. I was like, I can spot when a movie is not going to be good on a trailer.
Right.
Because, and especially with this movie, this is why I was like, oh, we should see this. I feel like the people who make trailers get the movie and they have to watch it, and then they have to figure out what was it about this movie? Like, what is the story? What am I selling? And when you watch a trailer where you're like, I don't understand what this is going to be about. It's like... That should tell you everything you need to know about the person who had to cut it. Such a great point. I don't know what it is about either, but I think it's about Brad Pitt and George Clooney are going to be here.
Totally.
They'll blow up scenes, or they'll take comedy that you're like, oh, that's funny. If you're laughing a little too hard at that trailer, but not hungry for more, that's because they threw all the funniest jokes in the trailer.
And your point is evidenced by the Disclosure Day trailer, which is why in our episode from last week we said there's not a lot of spoilers because they show you everything in the trailer. So, listeners, if you see everything in a trailer, that might mean that the filmmaker doesn't have that much else to show you.
Yeah.
So, I think maybe that could be at play here with the Odyssey. I mean, I'm looking at reviews that say astonishing, magnificent, totally delivers. The premiere was just a couple of days ago here in London. We're recording on Wednesday, July 8th. The trailer was Monday, July 6th. Zendaya's photos look amazing. So does Matt Damon and his beautiful wife. And so I'm happy for this team. I'm happy for little Tommy Holland, and all the reviews that he's getting. That's the major news, Mia. I mean, Disclosure Day is only dipping a little bit. It's still going a little bit strong. It was a top 5 box office for 4th of July weekend. The bigger news for 4th of July weekend was the Madonna album. So we encourage everybody to seek that out. That was better than Disclosure Day. Don't tell old Uncle Steve that we said that.
But once again, it's a trailer where you're like, what is this one going to be about? And if you don't know on the trailer just enough to tell everybody it's a movie about this, then it's going to be hard. And so with the invite...
Such a good point.
When I saw the trailer, it's everything the trailer tells you it is. So when you were like, no, Seth Rogen, I was like, look, they're telling you that they know who he is.
Yes.
And they know who he is to you.
Yep.
They know who Edward Norton is to you. They know who Olivia Wilde is to you. They're not trying to pretend too hard. And when I saw the kind of, the element of the invite has so much mystery, but, the trailer has this like, wait, what is about to happen? But it's something where we all knew what this film was going to be about. And guess what? That wasn't the biggest mystery.
That is it. It's very much like a play. And I know it's based on some original material that you're going to cover with us. So we're talking about The Invite featuring Olivia Wilde, Seth Rogen, Penelope Cruz, and Ed Norton. But Mia, tell us a little bit about Olivia Wilde, what has she done, and a little bit about the team behind this picture.
Okay, so I remember Don't Worry Darling, because that's her scandal. That's her scandal piece.
I know.
But it was something where her scandal piece kind of took over the movie. It was no longer about that movie. So really, I don't really want to tell you I don't remember it, because I do remember it. It had some edge to it. But quite frankly, it was so overcrowded by her personal life in the news, and even her husband did a little like story when this one came out, where he was like, where something happened where he basically told her like, I don't even know who you are. Like when they were married, like we're completely strangers.
So just for the listener, in case you haven't been familiar with this story, Olivia Wilde directed and was a supporting actor in a film called Don't Worry Darling. It was her second feature, and she famously had an affair with co-star Harry Styles on set. Then co-star Florence Pugh had a moral high horse moment. There was all this drama at the Venice Film Festival in 2025. Jason Sudeikis, with his pettiness, he delivered divorce papers to Olivia Wilde during her speaking segment during like a Comic-Con or a CinemaCon. I think he is so overrated. I think Ted Lasso is not very smart and very basic and broad. I am totally off on Jason Sudeikis. I am team Olivia Wilde. But you're right, Mia. What happened was...
He's like chummy. He's so like...
He's broad. Sorry, you're not that talented, and there are better people than you on SNL. And that's really petty, to take your private grievance out in public. It also reminds me of Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, that whole thing. I don't want to see it. I don't need Cricket Mobile. I don't watch global soccer. Get out of here. I don't care. But you're totally right. You're totally right, yeah. But tell us more about The Invite.
Okay, so you got Rashida Jones and Will McCormick who wrote this, which is why I said there is a double track on this. Because I think Rashida Jones, she seems to have a little bit of an edge in her not only in her performances and the roles that she takes, but also in her writing style. So I was like, okay. Yeah. This was not in fact, I was reading a lot of people saying this needs to be nominated for the Oscars for a Best Original Screenplay. And I
think it deserves that too.
Agree more. I was
Agreed.
like, This is definitely a little bit more than just couples kind of fighting in front of one another. She literally manages to pull, I call it like the soap opera effect, where every time you kind of go into a scene, you have to establish for the audience that there was this history. She
Yes.
writes it so seamlessly into the script, whether it's talking about the apartment or talking about their kid. She just pulls in things that are not in the scene and she makes it a part of the story. So I was like, you know what? They did a great job. Rashida, Will, way to go. I can imagine y'all sitting in that little writing room bouncing off arguments.
Totally agreed.
But
Yeah.
otherwise, yeah, same. You got basically 4 people: Seth Rogen, Olivia Wilde, Edward Norton, Penelope Cruz. This is A24, which
Yep.
I've talked about. They're just doing good, fun, but I keep saying it, cheap shit. Like
It's a great point. They live in that $10 to $20 million range. The Green Knight, Backrooms, Hereditary. I mean, they have dozens of successful titles now. But you're right; they are a mid to lower budget, high quality writing and directing studio. I think.
Yeah. You got 95% on Rotten Tomatoes, and you got
Wow,
Sundance
I didn't
World
know
Premiere
that. That
with
is super
people
high.
giving a standing ovation, which is what I like to hear. If I hear
Yeah.
a standing ovation, sometimes they'll do this, like they gave a standing ovation for George Clooney, and you're like, oh, okay,
All right. Yeah.
that's what this is. But when they give a standing ovation, I definitely think that means that people felt moved and feel like this is something that should stand in whatever award or premiere history. So I
Yes.
was like, yeah, but wait a minute. Okay, so you saw the milk. Give me, what is your reaction? Because Joey, I'm gonna say this: I'll go see movies with you, and you'll have a reaction. We'll get a day later. You sometimes can have a completely different
Yeah.
So this one seems consistent. Give me your reaction.
No, it's a great point. This is one of those pictures, like The Drama earlier this year, and a couple of others where I didn't really have an interest in seeing it. I had biases against some of the main characters, and this is why it's so great to have Mia as a pod partner listener, is because you have a broader view, and I have more biases that might trip me up and prevent me from accessing some of these pictures. So, in the first 10 or 15 minutes, there was so much Seth Rogen. And we'll talk about this more later, but he's deeply unlikable. He in my mind is irredeemable, and it was really difficult to sit through him. And so after the first 10 minutes, I was thinking, I don't know if I'm going to sit with Mia through this whole movie. By the end, I was so happy that I did. I think that there is so much talent and intelligence and empathy and cleverness in this. I think you're right, Mia, what you said about the script. The script is the star here. This picture, to me, would have worked with other actors. It works very specifically in this way because of these actors, and it's very crafty the way this was cast. I encourage folks to listen to the DGA podcast, the Directors Guild. There was a recent episode with Olivia Wilde, and she talks about some really interesting things about this picture, about how Ed Norton was improvising a little bit, Penelope Cruz was improvising. It is a film about a very tense and unhappy couple played by Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde, who have like a dinner night with a very comfortable and much more evolved and mature couple played by Cruz and Norton. It is funny. I mean, we were laughing pretty much all the way through. We cannot lose that. We're going to talk about some real stuff in this episode, some real meaty, difficult, complicated relationship stuff. It is also hysterical. It's hysterical.
Y'all.
It is a laugh fest, honestly.
And it's something where it's so funny how it's very hard to, we were talking about this like maybe 20, 30 years ago, this would have been starring like Goldie Hawn or, Kate Hudson or something like a Diane Keaton, which it was dedicated to Diane Keaton.
Oh, I forgot that. Yes, good point.
I think that would have made it funny in a way that's so, quirky, and you would have had even because I almost was like, what does Joey think of this soundtrack when I heard that?
Oh, yes.
I was like, what does he think of this soundtrack? But anyways,
yeah.
I remember thinking like they would have made this too funny. This film balances what's happening, like the pain and the drama and the confusion. It's balancing that out with humor, which was not easy to do. In fact, we were saying like this movie was maybe long by like 5 or 10 minutes, but it wasn't incomplete. Like, it just, all of the joke, you're just like, what would I have taken out becomes your like, and it's like, well, nothing. I needed it all. So it's also a very concise, tight story. But okay, Seth Rogen, I did not think was miscast for this. I really felt like he has something very naturally
terrible, annoying, furry.
Can I tell you, he plays such a
obnoxious?
Specific Mr. Nice Guy. And
he was not nice in this picture.
No, he wasn't. And that's the thing. I think he reveals that, like, Mr. Nice Guy is not really Mr. Nice Guy. You know,
right.
The guy who kind of just doesn't care about having a sports car, and the guy who just
I see
really
what you
just
mean.
doesn't, you know, he's more down to earth, and he's really just like a nice guy, not like those corporate assholes. And like, he kind of gives you that like flip of like, hey, Mr. Nice Guy is not perfect either, and he's not Mr. Nice Guy at home.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
So I thought he was very perfectly classed, like in a physical way. But I definitely think if you bring the expectations that you have about these actors to this film, it works. Yes. It actually works better if you know some of the headlines.
And I think that's your point about the film knows what the audience thinks about the cast, not even the characters. Before you even get to the characters, we know that Olivia Wilde is frantic on screen. We know that Seth Rogen is ranting and annoying. We know that Penelope Cruz is a knockout. We know that Ed Norton is smooth as silk. So you're totally right. It knows that expectation, and the film knows that we're going to bring that. That is very crafty. It's very smart. I have to give it to it. Yeah, for sure. Did you? What do you think? What's your total reaction now, a couple days after having seen it together?
Oh my God, I keep pulling out like bizarre nuggets because I keep going back into the room and back into that dinner time, because there's really no dinner time. And, you know, just like
there isn't a dinner.
Yeah, there's like these different moments where they're sitting in the living room, and so many like things came to mind. But my big question is always sitting there like, would I have done it with any of these people? Like, you know, I keep going back to that, and like, why not him? And why is this person feeling safe? And so it's definitely that kind of walk away where you're like,
No, you're totally right. I mean, this is a film that we talked about for hours. Afterward, we got together 2 days ago and talked about it for 2 or 3 hours. The film sits with you. The film invites your imagination. It's a film with, 2 hours of dialogue. So there's way more dialogue than, we just mentioned Christopher Nolan, than like a Tenet. Tenet has one-liners, and it's all plot-driven and action-driven. There's not people talking about their feelings. This film really stays with you, and it has what you've described here as a cinematic imagination, and we're going to get into that a bit more deeply right after this on Do You See What I Mean? All right, Mia, so talk to us a little bit about the imagination that this film brings, the production design, and
listen,
some of those things.
It opens up, Joey, and I know you caught this. It's like Seth Rogen, he's getting home from what we think is work or whatever, right?
Right.
And he walks by a window, and he's like, we need to put a curtain on this window.
And
I immediately thought of like Hitchcock. That was his whole thing, is like, we're voyeurs when you're going to the movies, like, we're peeking in on people's lives. We're like catching them when they're, kind of like out of character. And I was like, okay, they didn't overwork the metaphor, because it leaned so hard into like why that window was uncovered. So I was like, but one of the things, okay, here's the thing, and maybe we've talked about this a little bit. There's something about these relationship stories that are so, like, once you're an adult, that you recall them in a way, right? That's very different. But why do we like watching all these couples on TV and interacting? Because this almost seems like something we don't resolve. We just like to, we like to see other people have problems. Like, what is this? In fact, Penelope Cruz says it. She's like, no, we like conflict. We like a little.
She and Ed Norton, they do have comfort with that. So the general plot, folks, is that One couple is the neighbor of another couple. And Olivia Wilde invites Penelope Cruz and Ed Norton over. She kind of doesn't really tell Seth Rogen the full truth. And, oh, I told you I was bringing them over yesterday. And he's like, no, you didn't tell me. So they're arguing when Penelope Cruz and Ed Norton come in. And there's no, we're going to give a spoiler warning in, maybe 20, 30 minutes. So don't worry, listeners. But again, like Disclosure Day, there's not a ton to spoil. It's more about the emotional insights that emerge that we don't want to spoil for you. But as far as the action, I mean, you kind of know what it's generally
about. There's no mystery like, oh, he's the killer at this dinner. Like there's no, what's that movie where people go to dinner and then they have to go kill each other to get the inheritance? That's not happening here.
Ready or Not, or How to Make a Killing, or things like that. Yeah, this isn't a violent picture. This is just Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde have heard Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz having sex. And at this little wine and cheese night, Seth Rogen is saying, we should tell them that we could hear them and they're being rude. And Olivia Wilde is saying, please don't. It's great that she's having orgasms. Please don't. In the first 10 minutes, you've got a couple who's repressed and unhappy, talking to a slightly older couple who is free. And it's a culture clash.
Joey, have you ever lived near anyone who you heard having sex?
For sure, multiple times in my college dorm in LIA. I barely even knew what sex was at that point. I thought that there was a girl getting hurt in an apartment in my 20s in Midtown, and another apartment in Brooklyn. Yeah. How about you? Have you had that auditory experience?
I've had that experience, and there's something about it that it can make you angry. And I don't know why that is. Like,
really? I've never felt angry. I'm always like, good for you.
No, and it was more, and I think it's because it was roommates as opposed to, like...
That's different.
You know what I mean? But hearing it, through your wall, that kind of experience, I don't know why it conjures that as opposed to, hey, guys.
Yep. Good
so when Seth Rogen was, like, going off, I was like, okay... I don't even know what this phenomenon is.
Yeah.
But somehow we don't mind it on the TV, on Cinemax, and we don't mind hearing it, but it's something about when you're trying to sleep and it's, you know what I mean? It's like, why do some people get angry about it? It's like, are we haters? Like, what's going on?
Well, and the film gets into this. I mean, clearly it does come out, and you can see this in the trailer. The Seth Rogen character, Joe, the Olivia Wilde character, Angela, they haven't had sex in a long time. You don't even need their admission for that. And Olivia Wilde reacts positively, saying, that woman is having great orgasms. I wish that I could. Whereas Seth Rogen is not saying that. He's depressed. He doesn't like his life. He used to be in a band. He's a music teacher. He's really kind of privileged and annoying, and the film knows that. And he's angry. So I think from him, it's envy and frustration, and from her, it's envy and joy. She is seeking what Penelope Cruz has.
She's curious about it.
She's curious.
Like, what would you take? I had crafted in my mind, I was like, this couple met a very specific way. Because you kept saying, like, yo, I don't see, especially from the trailer, you're like, come on. Do you see these people as a couple? And I'm like, Joey, I do. But I think it's because, like, I think Seth Rogen is that guy who shows up in your life after a stream of bad partners. He's that guy, like, when you're cooking dinner and the guy's cheating on you, he's that guy, like, you don't deserve to be treated like that. You're hot. If you were mine, he's that guy who does that type of angle. And once he proves himself to be a much more reliable or more even sensitive or better listener than your asshole, Porsche driving.
Douchebag guy.
Douchebag guy. He becomes like really special. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's a dynamic with the way that they are not having sex that you do sense there's this element of friendship. They know they have a kid or something somewhere. You get the anxiety element.
Yes.
But
yes.
I definitely wasn't thinking, oh, he's crazy. I was just thinking, like, he's that Mr. Nice Guy.
Right.
Who really was just like a a different kind of guy. You know what I mean?
Well, and clearly has gone through changes because the first thing that I thought when I saw this representation is I thought this is a Seth Rogen character that I saw 20 years ago. You and I differ on this. I still don't like him in the picture. I think that there's a better picture without him, but that's not the picture that was made. You know, in the agency business, we say, answer the RFP that you got, not the RFP that you wanted, because you would get a campaign and you would say, let's say Nestle is like, we're going to spend $5 million and we're going to launch this candy bar. How would you help us do it? And there would be people in the agency world who was like, you know what, they should actually launch 3 candy bars and they should do corporate social responsibility. But that's not the picture that it is. So I'm going to live in the picture that this is. I just think that we've seen this so much from him. It was just hard for me to believe that a girl like that would be with a guy like this. And this was a really productive conversation between you and I, because I thought, why would she be with him? He's absolutely unlikable. He's depressed. He doesn't look at her. He comes in the house after work and he lays down and kicks his shoes off like he's in college. I don't know anybody like that. I'm not friends with anybody like that. As a male person, I couldn't be farther from this schlubby guy who is essentially Fozzie Bear from the Muppets. That's who this guy is. Olivia Wilde is stressed out, but she is nice and she is beautiful and she is considerate, at least. So I struggled with that.
His whole vibe to me is, like I said, he was a slob then, but he's the guy who's gonna take you out, get you shit faced because of that breakup. He's gonna take you back to his dirty apartment or his slightly hyper clean.
100%, yes.
And he's gonna be sweet in a way that, you know, the guy who didn't return the call or is still talking to it, you know, that, like I said, that stream of bad boyfriends leaves a lot of room for the goofy, funny, well, I can take you, you know, like that guy to swoop in. And by the time she was probably with him, I think milestones started hitting, you know, like your best friend gets married or your youngest sister. And that's when she's like, why is my life?
It's a great point.
I don't have a career. I don't have anything. What's happening in my life? And he said, I'll give you a life.
Yes.
I'll give you that life. And and you're going, how does he stay? And I'm like, it's actually not that hard, Joey. Plenty of people end up in these relationships.
Well, that honestly makes me sad, and it makes me wonder why more women aren't lesbians, to be honest. I mean, that's what I thought. I was like, girl, you could have anybody. And this guy is an absolute, and I don't want to use the word loser. I want to have empathy for folks who are in middle age. And also, there is a ton of writing and sociological thinking around how men are struggling right now. White men are struggling. Middle-aged men are struggling. You see this stuff a lot, and this picture plays it. But yes, but...
A lot of people.
Yeah, but there's something about men specifically.
There's this male loneliness.
Epidemic. The epidemic of male loneliness, that type of stuff.
Here's where you and I have a little more hindsight into this space, because I remember we talked about like, doing the podcast, it's very easy for us to talk, right? Seth Rogen seems like a guy who's definitely hit a mental decline, and that's when all you can say is no and no but to everything.
Oh, great point.
And
he does that for 2 hours.
Yes. Is drive up all of the tension in a room. It just makes him seem more set apart. It makes him seem like he just doesn't fit. And that's the part of the script that he does. You mean me? You want me to be there? You know? Right. And so when you're going, I didn't like, it's like, no, all of those things you're describing is exactly what he needed to deliver in the script. This constant like, no.
You are right.
And no,
I do agree with you.
But and it's just being a disagreeable person in general, like being someone who's constantly in conflict, even for the simplest of conversations, is always going to look very unattractive. Yeah, otherwise, if you took away that and he was Mr. Sensitive Teddy Bear, which is probably how he started off slightly in the dates, but Mr. Sensitive Teddy Bear, you would be like, what a sweet guy who doesn't... But he definitely could have pulled the same emotional frustrations off and just been like, okay, but we don't have wine. Okay, but I don't want to do this. Can we do this another? Yeah, maybe you guys should. If he had that tone, you wouldn't have been like, he seems crazy. But people who can't agree with people typically do come off more crazier than they want to.
So what Mia's talking about, listener, is that he comes home from his job as a music teacher. He's no longer this independent. He had some fame as an independent band leader. That's totally shocking to me, but Olivia Wilde, that's how he met her. So she invites Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz over, who they have been hearing having sex. They're both a super hot couple, and we as the audience know, wow, these two people are like super alluring, and then these other two people are like kind of a drag. How is this going to go? But I want to drill down on that very good question you asked, which is that, why do we like to see couples like this? One reason is because of that old adage, you never know what goes on inside a relationship when the doors are closed. And that is true. You've been in relationships. I've been in relationships. You can present any kind of front that you want, but that does not mean that that is how things are behind closed doors. So movies give us that picture. And there's also a takedown effect. I mean, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf by Mike Nichols in 1966 is a classic. It's a play by Edward Albee, but we like carnage. We like to see people tear each other apart. There is a little bit of that in this picture that is not as mean-spirited, but this is very Mike Nichols. I would say it's more Mike Nichols than Woody Allen. Do you agree with that? As far as how they show couples?
100%.
Yeah.
Because really the only Woody Allen-esque thing is Seth Rogen. Everything else
The neurotic.
is a little more self-aware,
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, there's something about watching couples to me that I feel like I have always struggled with communicating in relationships.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm almost using it in a way of like, how can I learn what not to say?
Sure.
And how to communicate those needs, or like, why do those things go wrong? So when a script is good like this one, I really enjoy it. It just gives me those, like, when we were just talking about no ands and no buts, I'm like, damn, like, that's real. Like, if you sit with people like that on a regular, you'll just start to feel like crazy, like the way Olivia Wilde acts in this film. Hyper anxious, unwilling, unable to really trust your own gut, because it's like everything about you in the relationship is disagreeable. Like, you're like, what about these? No. And it's just like, after a while, that I would definitely turn into an Olivia Wilde where, I had a boss, okay? I'm going to tell you, this is a job I quit that day. But, I work with a lot of numbers, and so it'll be like, hey, what do you want to do? You want to raise this like a quarter or just like an eighth of an inch? Like, what do you think? And this guy would do something like this. What do you think about 3/16?
Oh my gosh, come on. Nobody says 3/16. Oh no, you work in fashion, so that's common.
No one says 3/16 because it's not real. Like, it's not real. It's not real. It's not. It after something's sewn up, that's not real. But I realized he was always doing it so that I was asking him. So he had to do all the decision making. In other words, it was constantly reinforcing, like, you can't trust your gut because your first reaction and your second reaction is the wrong one, and I'm going to give you the right one. And it makes you go into work just like micromanaged in a different emotional way. So you throw that in a relationship where you're like, oh my God, what do you think if we go to such and such, that restaurant? I mean, that shit, after 3 months, I might be writing a note, because that will tear you down. And so I remember thinking, with the way that these couples work, it just it reinforces, like, it's a good thing you quit that job. That relationship wasn't going to work. That was just going to leave you insecure.
Absolutely. And probably more depressed than when you started.
Which is how Olivia Wilde is. That's why I say, okay, so there's a dynamic between this where I was like, there's two laugh tracks on this. So you have a cultural laugh track that shows up. And you have because there's an element where you can anticipate where things are about to go wrong. This doesn't feel as like Gosford Park.
Great point, great reference. Great dinner scene also. Killer dinner scene.
You can tell when somebody's about to get upset, or somebody's, something's about to spill. You can feel all of the energy happening in the room. And there is something about this film that delivers a certain type of, it's just like a certain type of fun. So when I was laughing, most of the audience was not laughing, but there was a scene where Olivia Wilde she gets all this food, and she's trying to serve stuff from, Penelope Cruz's culture, like, oh, and she's trying to pronounce it that, and I'm like,
Hamon.
yes, and you're like, oh my god, this is awkward white people. Like, this is awkward white people dinners where you're just like, you're trying to make them feel more comfortable than, like,
Well,
you're trying to help them relax. And
I'm glad you brought this
that,
up. And that's a fabulous scene, and it turns out Penelope Cruz's character, Pina, is actually vegan. But there is an eagerness to meet folks of color at their kind of cultural point, and I never saw the movie this way. But Mia, talk to us, and you mentioned this a little bit about Rashida Jones, but after the picture, you were like, hey, there's a second track to this movie, and I was kind of watching it on what you described as, quote-unquote, the black track. So tell us what you meant and how that experience was.
Okay, so growing up, their movie distribution was very different. You had your black movie theaters, which is where a lot of black film and cinema would get distributed to. So you wanted to go on an opening day to go see Waiting to Excel or Malcolm X or whatever. But when you're watching it with a very interactive audience. And so, growing up, that's kind of what you did for certain movies. And then other movies, you might go to the other theater, which is a little more of a white theater. And you go see the other things, but you would notice, like, people don't interact and they don't laugh at the same things, right? Because it's not funny. And there isn't that awareness of, like, that was kind of weird that she would involve, they're going, how generous of her. And you're going, okay, that's weird. So when I moved to Brooklyn, I would go to these things at BAM. They would have these kind of like reunion events or show special films. And some of them were from, black cinema history kind of vibe.
Sure. Yeah.
But they would have a mixed audience. And I remember just sitting in the audience and noticing the portions of the audience that would groan, moan. Oh, but it was all stuff that I was like, as people of color, you experience all the time.
Interesting.
And it is a lot of management of getting highly anxious people to just stop, but it's an experience that is very unique. And I felt like all of that was left in there. When you have Penelope Cruz Pina, she's like, Spanish speaking, and she sometimes has to, talk to her boyfriend in Spanish. And there's a dynamic to it where it's like, it understands how these cultures are going to collide, and it didn't whitewash it. In other words, I feel like the writers, Rashida and Will, just left it in. It's just like, let's just leave it in. And so there's a scene closer to the end where Edward Norton is like trying to explain it. She's like, are you really trying to correct my English? Like, really? And I was like, that is 100% something I caught, but I love that they left it in the script. You know what I mean? So that
especially because they leave the inverse in there too. So occasionally Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz will talk a little bit in Spanish, and they'll be kind of like conferring on the side, and it even becomes a joke. There's a scene where Seth Rogen says, "No speaking in Spanish," like say everything so we can understand it. But after that point, Mia, Penelope Cruz kind of claps back at Ed Norton, her partner, and says, "You speak Spanish all the time. Do I correct your Spanish?"
No,
and it's a very open and honest, and then he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." But that's where the difference between the white characters and the non-white characters, I mean, really, it's just Pina, Penelope Cruz, who's non-white, but you're right about them leaving that in. It's like these side arguments that might be 10 seconds, but they leave it all in there, and that is a credit to the script.
You said this too, you were like, they were an older couple, they were a little more experienced couple, but a lot of times people, okay, I'm going to say this, a lot of times people assume that interracial couples are very, like racially clear. That they've got it all figured out, color and all of that's disappeared, and that's just not true.
It's not true.
There's still an element of fumbling through it, just like with any other area of identity and, kind of joining with another person. So there's a dynamic where I was like, yes, I think she's, left in a very specific part of relationships and sexuality. And how, those dynamics can sometimes, redefine, how things are going to go forward. Because you do get this sense with Pina that Okay. Actually, why don't we? Okay, let's talk about the characters because I feel like we're gonna get into some spoilers.
I agree with you, but I want to mention one more thing because you've written such good episodes. So, listener, we're going to get into spoilers in about 5 minutes, but I got it before we take a break. I want to ask you one more thing because you brought up Rear Window. One of your questions to us with this agenda is what makes relationship stories feel voyeuristic. There is a window in this apartment where occasionally Olivia Wilde will walk by, and occasionally she'll be coming from a shower, and we don't want to spoil it until the next section. But windows and observation and voyeurism are very present with this. And you, Mia, you brought up Rear Window, which is one of the Hitchcock masterpieces from 1954, featuring Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly. I watch it every summer. I just watched it last week. It features an adventure, like wildlife, military photographer played by Jimmy Stewart. He's not used to being cooped up. He hates it. He has a broken leg. He's at home, and all he can do in this hot New York summer in the village is watch his neighbors. And a lot of us are familiar with this picture. I urge you to seek it out. It's an absolute joy. But as I've gotten older, I'm watching him and Grace Kelly, because Grace Kelly, the most beautiful woman in the world, she wants a relationship with him, and he's very dismissive of her. Oh, she's the Park Avenue crowd. She just cares about the latest fashion. She wouldn't come in a tent with me in Africa. So you're watching Jimmy Stewart and Grace Kelly watching other people. So back to your question about why is this so delicious to watch couples, is that couples, if you're in a couple, are a mirror to ourselves. So Grace Kelly and Jimmy Stewart are watching all these people, other relationships, these women, these men, parties, and war heroes, and maybe a murder, and they have a mirror, but we're watching the couple watching them, and so it's this prismatic type of viewing experience, which I think that was in Rashida Jones and Will McCormick's mind as they were writing this picture, because it is it's like Rear Window, but just front window. It's like you're right there at the front, and I think you're right about this voyeurism, but Rear Window, it's almost like a tacit agreement with the audience. Hey, Hitchcock is saying, hey, we know you like to watch, but he's not saying that. That's just in the picture. But this one is like, Penelope Cruz and Ed Norton is like, oh, you like to listen? And they're like, no, we don't like to, but we hear you. And they're like, oh, will you hurt us? They're kind of breaking that fourth wall about some of that voyeurism. Do you think that's...
that's the interesting thing about it, because it's so uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a lot of discomfort in this picture.
And you dine out with couples. I mean, they're kind of like, fussing back about, don't correct it's uncomfortable. That's what couple movies are. They are guaranteed that you are going to feel 100%. A lot of discomfort.
Otherwise, they would be boring. Like, what movie is about a happy couple? Like, that's not a movie.
But that's an interesting dynamic that we go to the theater and we thoroughly can enjoy being uncomfortable. Like, you know what I mean? But in a way that I'm going to say this, it's like, in real life, real life has a different type of vibe. That we're willing to do it in the movie theater. Yes. But in real life, we're all doing this. Oh, God. Everybody, come on, let's just calm down.
Because we've all been to birthday parties, anniversaries, not weddings per se, but just general dinner dates or dinner drinks with a couple where that the couple isn't quite on stable ground. I mean, It's not a spoiler to say that when Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz show up, it's directly following a big argument by Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde, and Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz note it. They said, hey, is this not a good time? They're mature. They're like, hey, we heard you. We knocked at the door and we heard you. Is this not a good time? What the film does is it just puts us into the boiling pot. It's like, no, we're all going to hang out. There's two people that are uncomfortable, two people that are comfortable, and let's see what happens when you mix all that stuff up. I think you're right though, Mia. Our next section is called Dinner Theater. So, folks, we're going to talk about some spoilers. We're going to do a deep dive on the characters, and we're going to talk about the ending to the new picture directed by Olivia Wilde called The Invite. Right after this on Do You See What I Mean? Welcome back to Do You See What I Mean? We're going to talk about spoilers, so if you do want to have a fresh view of Olivia Wilde's new picture, The Invite, we invite you to skip the rest of this episode, come back to us, because there's some good stuff that Mia has prepared for us. If you have seen it, or if you don't mind spoilers, then keep listening. But we're going to talk about some of the dinner theater, and we're going to deep dive into a bit more of these characters. So Mia, let me ask you, we've seen Olivia Wilde before, not quite like this. We've seen Seth Rogen before. I don't think we've seen Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz like this. What did you think of these characters and these performances?
I definitely enjoyed Edward Norton.
Oh my gosh, he is fucking amazing.
He was very make believe, but I like how.
Wait, what do you mean make believe?
Like, I mean, okay, there is an element where Seth Rogen's like, this guy's a phony, a fake.
Yep.
Ed Norton does skirt with that a little bit, but not in the way that, like, Hank Azaria would in Yoga Instructor Next Door, but Edward Norton's like, yeah, I mean, sure, I'm a firefighter,
Yeah.
Just he does like a soft play into this kind of, I don't want to say he's not like a dream man, but he's a very magnetic, very confident, but also he seemed like a very like emotionally mature being.
Yeah.
And so the minute he's saying, no, please, you guys carry on. We're you believe him.
Yep.
You like him. You kind of want to. He immediately is that guy you want to hang out with.
And another thing, a word that you use, which we throw around in today's culture, it's authentic and authenticity. But I will tell you, the day before we saw this, I listened to a podcast with him. He sounded exactly like his character Hawk. I mean, this guy. He is a former firefighter who was a captain. He was previously married. In a very moving, improvised story by Ed Norton, you learn that his wife died. So here, this is the story I wanted to tell you from Olivia Wilde's appearance on the DGA podcast from 2 weeks ago. Please seek it out, listeners. Olivia Wilde said that Ed Norton and all the other cast members, they wanted to have fun with this. They were playing with this. They were improvising. And Ed Norton says to Olivia Wilde, hey, I have a story about how Hawk got his name. And Olivia Wilde says, okay, what is it? And Ed Norton says, well, I kind of want to just do it on the day. And Olivia Wilde, who is a star, but also the director, she kind of needs to know. She's like, okay, would you say it's like a long story or a short story? And he goes, I just want to do it on the day. So there's a point when Seth Rogen, in one of the many instances, is when he's being a total immature shitbag, he's challenging Hawk on how he got such a cool name. Like, that's not your name. How's that name? And so Ed Norton says, my name is blank, blank, blank. His initials are HWK. So there it is right there. Yeah. But then he says that he was married before. He says, before my wife died. So right there you have one story beat. And what we think as an audience, and what would have been a different movie, kind of like The Notebook, is that Ed Norton is going to tell this story about, as a firefighter, he was there for his wife until her dying day of cancer. But that's not where he goes. He actually tells a story about how he wasn't such a great partner to his wife, and maybe he kind of boxed in her energy and didn't give her space. So it's this little balletic kind of pas de deux dance move that is so moving and skillful. This is Ed Norton's best picture since Primal Fear. We haven't seen him perform that much. He runs away with this picture along with Penelope Cruz. Let me ask you about her too.
We got Fight Club.
Oh no, you're right. You're right. Fight Club is phenomenal.
No, but with Edward Norton, what's fun about him, and there is this. Okay, so some of my colleagues are telling me about this. Like, there's these kind of male-centered, kind of spokespeople, influencers, pop psychologists out there. And there's a dynamic where we were talking about like this sort of like male performative, like, like being vulnerable and being authentic, and how you tell stories. It's like, so me and my wife, we used to fight all the time. I was terrible. Like a lot of those kind of male performative spaces will give you this story where it sounds like they're being open and vulnerable, and they're even admitting to like having a hard or a bad side.
Right.
But in reality, then they kind of always finish it off with some sort of cloak and dagger, like,
Totally.
and that's why we fixed it. And I started to make myself happy, and you're just like, oh, okay,
Yep.
like, but I hear this is very touching for men to see this like vulnerable, authentic come through.
Yeah.
But with Edward Norton, it actually feels genuinely
It
authentic.
feels real.
He
Yes.
scored something that I was like, I feel like this is what those like
Yeah.
influencers want to capture, but their book deals require that they have that
Great point.
like first, second, middle,
Yeah.
end,
Yeah.
to whatever is the thing. And so I think it's smart that he also just did it on the spot.
It's true.
Almost
It's-
like, I don't want to over rehearse this
Yes.
to where I sound like that guy on YouTube.
Yes. Yes, 100%. That motivational
Who's-
speaker.
Who's
Yeah.
Yes, who's telling men to beat their loneliness.
Yes.
like-
You can beat this if you dig within yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. But you hit on something else, Mia, with
Joey,
that
that's
reference is
sexy.
that he is so alluring. He's almost like a cult leader. I mean, Seth Rogen will come to him with some garbage and he'll say, "Hey, that's good. I like your honesty. What else is behind that?" He is so
Yeah.
smooth.
Actually,
and
he demanded. He's
stable.
like, dude, could you not do that? Please don't lie to us. We like
the honest
truth,
Joe.
and we
Yes.
want you back.
Exactly.
And it's just like,
Exactly.
and it was something where you're like, wait, this guy's actually doing it really well in a way that a lot of these YouTube people get paid a lot of money.
That's true.
To tell that same story with that hook, line, and sinker.
That's true.
But I definitely felt like they were playing a little too much emotional nursemaids for this to get sexy. Let's talk about Penelope Cruz.
Yes, we have to.
Let's talk
Yeah.
about how like emotionally grounded she also was in a way that
Yeah.
I mean they were where we went to get comfortable.
Yes.
We knew if they're in the room, nothing's going to
Great
go too
insight.
wrong.
Yes, and the wonderful backstory is that Penelope Cruz plays a therapist and a sexologist, and she is interested in mental and physical and sexual health. She and her partner Ed Norton met because he was her patient. So already, they walk in the room in in minute 15, and you think, oh, these people have such a great relationship. They've been together for 20 years. That's what I thought. When they ask them, how long have you been together? And Penelope Cruz looks at Ed Norton and is like, oh, maybe a year, maybe a little less. And I was like,
Maybe less.
what?
Yeah.
And you were a patient? So that felt real life to me. Real life is complicated, and you have marriages and divorces and spouses and widowing and therapists that maybe you become involved. Like, that is real life. And this picture is for, I would say, kind of the liberally evolved, not the conservative suburbanite who is like, that is inappropriate. Sex parties are
Well,
bad. This is
it
not
didn't-
the picture
it
for
didn't
them.
It didn't sound like they stayed doctor-patient.
No,
It
no.
sounded to
But that's
me,
how they met.
Okay. Yes, that's how they met. But it almost sounded to me like she encouraged him to explore places
Yes.
that
Yes.
she had already explored or was also, you know what I mean? So it sounds like they stopped being doctor-patient.
Yes. Oh, no, I
There's
agree with you.
something- There was something
Yes.
about that I didn't feel this power dynamic of,
No.
you know what I
Yep.
mean? He had to be authentic because his
Yep.
doctor's here and he can't fool her.
Yeah.
Like there was something about it where when she said he used to be my patient, I didn't get that sense of
Scandal.
impropriety or
Yes.
like
Impropriety.
scandal
I
or
agree.
even like, oh, was that ethical? I got the sense that they did it very responsibly. She seemed to just hold those types of boundaries with herself.
Yes. And
And
it comes out that yes, they have been having sex loudly. They have sex parties. They have an open relationship. They have been having multiple partners. There's a mysterious woman named Vanessa that is mentioned. They know who makes what sounds. They're very open. Then it comes out that they have gone to conventions. They, folks, like I would say, I don't like to use the term boomers. Our parents are boomers, and baby boomers are, the kids of the greatest generation. But this is something that boomers would say swingers. That's a very outdated term, but that is in the lane.
I do love swingers.
It's in the lane. And these are folks who are sexually and emotionally evolved. They do not get jealous because they are mature. They are evolved. They don't need to have just one partner. I think that is a very profound thing. They are a kind of a goal couple, like an aspirational couple. This is not trad wife stuff. This is on the other side. This
You
is
said trad wife
yeah,
stuff.
because that's big in the media now
Wait.
too. They're not making their own
Of
toothpaste.
course.
They're not having 5 kids. They're enjoying their
Yeah.
bodies. They're enjoying each other. And then conversely, cast in their relief are Angela, played by Olivia Wilde, and Joe by Seth Rogen, who it turns out have not had sex in a year. They kind of despise each other. They make each other miserable. And it eventually comes out that Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz kind of express a little interest and suggest that, hey, if you guys ever wanted to connect in that way, we might be open to that. And since we're in spoiler territory, they say, well, it could the straight neurotic couple is like, wait, what's an open marriage? Wait, you have sex with other people? And it's this very like.
Well, they tried to play it cool, and
For a
I
second,
loved
yeah.
how they played it cool, because it was like, they're not boomers, right?
Right.
But they also were kind of like, I think it just for them was a different window. Remember, they've been performing in front of the windows, but this couple, they didn't really know enough about them in that way, other than that they're having really great sex.
That's true.
And I think when you get to the heart of like what is going on with Angela and Joe, Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen's characters, is that Joe went depressed.
Yep.
And he went so depressed that it left his partner basically questioning, like, what am I doing in this relationship? What's my purpose?
Yes.
So she's supposed to be this artist. She's trying to decorate the apartment. It's a whole vibe where you get the sense that they're just both feeling stuck. But I didn't get the sense that they were trying to make each other miserable on purpose, which is a different kind of like War
That's
of the Roses
more War of the
vibe.
Roses,
You
Who's
know
Afraid
what
of
I mean?
Virginia Woolf.
Yes.
I'm going to take you down,
Yes.
and I'm going to relish crushing your soul. That is not this picture.
Yes,
You're right.
You've
That's a good
ruined my
distinction.
heart and my life. She's kind of going at it like, I have been ignored for so long in this.
Yes.
And then he's going at it like, I'm just trying to get through all of this. And that's where they miss each other. So even when what's happening throughout, as they're almost being vetted by Penelope Cruz and Edward.
Exactly. Over these couple
They get pulled
of
apart.
interesting hours. Yes, I agree with you.
Right. They're flirting, and then you're seeing what their flirting skills are.
Yes. Oh my God.
You're just seeing how, like, by the time these people tell them, like, yes, we are in a open relationship and we swing, you know. By the time they tell them that, it makes sense that their reaction would be so tense.
Yes.
Curious, excited, like they're afraid.
Yes.
Like,
So what happens, listener, is
haven't had a
that
moment.
they eventually decide, Penelope Cruz is very shrewd, and she's looking at this and saying, I don't know if this is the night for you guys. You guys are clearly having some conflict. I don't know if this is the night. And you and I have laughed about this, Mia, till the cows come home. Ed Norton is so great. He's like, tonight might not be the night, but it could. It doesn't have to be. But it could. He's like keeping the window open, and it's not sleazy, but it's super crafty and subtle. Eventually,
but that's what he drives. That I think Olivia Wilde is walking naked in front of, like, just desire, like wanting to desire something in life.
So
and that's where Seth Rogen's depression just can't show up.
So, listener, what happens? We mentioned this window with Mia's very astute rear window observation and parallel tie. There's a window in Seth Rogen, in Olivia Wilde's apartment. Olivia Wilde sometimes is out of the shower. She walks by it. There had been a point when she looked up and saw Hawk, played by Ed Norton, looking at her, and she was like, "Oh!" But then she kind of maybe did it again. And Mia, this happens every day in real life, and people are not talking about it. And Ed Norton and Penelope,
we should talk about
we
it.
should. Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz are like, yes, hey. Penelope Cruz says, Seth Rogen, you look at my tits in the elevator. That's okay. They're great tits. Look at them. And she pushes them together. This is real stuff that happens, and typically straight conservative couples view that as inappropriate, whereas Hawk and Pina view that as just part of life. you know? And that was so simple
yes.
and profound about this picture. And that's one of my favorite things. It's like, that's part of life. You don't have to be jealous. You don't have to be insecure. You don't have to be a 12-year-old, boy.
Said you
Oh, don't look at any other
You don't have
girl.
to be insecure.
You don't have to, like, just, So they...
No, well, I like what... Okay, here's my thing about what that couple ends up doing is they're kind of having a dialogue with these people that we can't have a dialogue with. And they're presenting this. It's not really that they're presenting like we should all be like swapping or whatever, but what they're presenting to them is like, it's okay if you guys are curious about trying something different in your relationship.
Absolutely.
Or life.
Yes.
And they're really, you do not feel pressure. Like, in this film, you can imagine that would bring this tension, like, I don't want to say anything. You don't really feel like there's this pressure, but the real moment is not about the invite, and it is not about jealousy or whatever. It's about the fact that they don't know each other well enough to even be able to agree or disagree or like, and it does create a tension because if one of them wants to do it and the other one doesn't, what are you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What if none of us want to do it? What does that say about where we're at in life? Yes. So the question in and of itself, whether it's to have sex with them or to not that night, is really what this film is trying to talk about with this couple. We just can't have that conversation.
And other pictures would just talk about it. This is holding it and pulling it and distorting it and exploring it. I mean, there's such nuance and prism to this picture. What happens is they decide, okay, let's fucking do it. Let's swap. And so one couple goes to one area of the house, another goes to the other. They don't actually
no. It's actually better than that because Pina is like, y'all are weird. I'm not doing both of y'all tonight, but I'm willing for us to just swap.
Sure.
In other words, she holds that boundary because she's like, y'all's energy is off.
Yep.
And I'm not feeling good about this. So me and him, we have to see if we're hitting off. Is that okay with you? And Olivia Wilde's like, I mean, that's okay with me.
Okay. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And then with Edward Norton's character, it's like, he's like, okay. So there's a dynamic where there's boundaries. So you don't, like I said, there's no threat of who's about to fuck who. The real question is like, do these people even know who they are enough to walk into these rooms?
Yes, absolutely.
No.
Now let's talk about what happens right after this. Okay, so what happens is Seth Rogen and Penelope Cruz go off into the office where they've been smoking weed before. Ed Norton and Olivia Wilde go into the kitchen, and there's a little stuff that starts to happen. Then Seth Rogen has this dumb fall and hurts his back and ruins the whole thing. That breaks his spell. He goes back to being a total asshole. We have the Hawk speech about his wife who passed and how he got his name and all of this stuff. And then what happens after that is a tour de force by Penelope Cruz. She says what we all wish we could say at parties where a couple that clearly doesn't like each other and maybe their relationship is over. She essentially therapizes them. That is my favorite Penelope Cruz performance. She absolutely fucking crucifies that scene. You cannot take her eyes off her. She says the things that we all wish we could say. You guys have a weird energy. You're super mean to each other. What is going on?
She's like, that was her thing. She's like, have y'all listened to each other?
Have you listened?
Mean.
Yeah, you're
like,
mean.
Y'all are really mean to each other.
And that goes back to your question from half an hour ago, Mia, which is why do we like watching this stuff? Because when we go to a party, we can't tell a couple what we think. But in movies, we can see that fantasy play out. And she confronts them. And it is a brilliant scene. And to me, Mia, Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz just walk away with this picture. I do think that Olivia Wilde and Seth Rogen are doing great work. I don't think they can hold a candle to these two performers who have 30 or 40 years of cinematic history. They are both legends, and they walk away with this picture to me. And that's why I would urge people to see this, not for Seth Rogen, as you can probably tell, but for Penelope Cruz and Ed Norton. They are they are magnanimous and resplendent in this film. They are unbelievable.
They're honest in a way that I feel like, those like radical honesty or,
Yes.
whatever, transparent. Those books want to get people too, but it doesn't seem like they got there because they made all of these really right decisions. And I think they seem to have compassion for themselves enough to just show up and be present. There's something about Olivia Wilde that just drove me nuts. The gaslighting, the just like the extra tension where you're like, oh my god, this person cannot be ignored at all. Like their emotions are this big. But honestly, I loved how it played like a very very friction driven musical. It just works with all four of them.
It does.
I can't think of how to recast it. My only thing was I was like, damn, like some of what they do is so seductive. You do not walk away from this movie and go like, oh, how do I feel about couples? You really walk away going, would I have slept with that couple?
Yeah.
There's something very smooth and hot going on.
I agree, but let me pose a theory to you. If this were real life, I don't think an emotionally evolved couple like Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz are choosing that couple. That's movie stuff to me.
We had to fit that into the night because they're definitely not doing
I don't think
tonight.
Penelope, but I'm saying Penelope Cruz is never going to be attracted to asshole Fozzie Bear. That to me is not believable. What is believable is Ed Norton being attracted to clearly beautiful but neurotic and clearly depressed and low self-esteem Olivia Wilde. I have been in an open relationship. My last marriage was an open relationship, and I'm happy to talk about it. We always got the same type of wide-eyed wonder at parties. Like we would talk to a couple and we would share that we were open because we were open about being open. And you get the wide eyes. Oh my God, what's that like? It's like you feel like a little bug behind glass in 5th grade. Like people are trying to examine you because they've never seen that kind of caterpillar before. It's that type of stuff. And we had our song and dance about, well, yeah, we're open about it. It just takes communication. Now, we were not the type of couple that Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz were. We were not having sex parties. We didn't really do group stuff. We would occasionally play separately, but not together. But I will tell you, honestly, we rarely ever used the openness. And how I used to describe it is that when you're in an open relationship, it's like having the door open and fresh air comes in. When you're in an open relationship, the knowledge that you could hook up and not get crushed by your partner's insecurity was kind of hot. The knowledge that you could approach that server or that person out at the dance floor or whatever was also hot. It kept some fresh air in the relationship. Yes, occasionally we would hook up with other people, but it actually happened very rarely. Again, we were a different couple than Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz. But what most couples met us with was skepticism and condescension.
Oh, yeah.
And they did not like to hear the dead facts about divorce, which is that they hover between the 50 and 60% rate, depending on the economy. So half those couples that were condescending to us probably aren't together anyway. Or what's worse than divorce is staying together and being unhappy. And that is another fine point that Pina, Penelope Cruz's character, puts on it. Because they say, yeah, we're staying together partially because of the kid.
For the kids.
And Penelope Cruz is like, oh, okay, great. So she's going to grow up around this horribly toxic energy. Great, yeah. So look, marriage is fine for some people, but I think when you are married, you expect other people to uphold that social contract. And when there are couples like me and my ex, or like Penelope Cruz and Ed Norton, who dare to suggest a different contract, that makes straight monogamous couples uncomfortable.
I think it's definitely difficult to switch over to. If you're in a monogamous relationship and if you don't know your partner's opinion on this, that's tough. That is very, very tough. So I think for a lot of people, the attitude is like, what if somebody wants this, but we're in the relationship and now I have to join into it? And so I think there's this sort of curiosity of like, did y'all come together with that agreed? Or was it something where one person had to talk another person? Does one person really not want to do it and the other person wants to do it
Yes.
more? So there is a curiosity to it. I will say, though, I'm thinking back on this and I'm like, maybe this wasn't even appropriate. But I remember as a kid, my mom and my dad had a couple they used to hang out with, and then they stopped. And it was a couple from my mom's job. I won't say where. And
What job was that?
I remember no, and I remember my mom told me, she's like, no, they're swingers. They like swapping couples. That's why they had your dad and I over for all those dinners. And so I'm telling you, this is like when I was maybe like, let's say 8 or 9.
Yes.
You know, like, so I had been hearing about, but, you know, in other words, I hadn't experienced them as that. I had experienced them as my parents' friendly couple friends.
Yes, right.
You know, from work. And then to understand that behind the scenes, there was, you know what I mean?
Yes.
All of this other dynamic. It gave me a different experience. So sometimes it's more of like people need to experience the couple more, get a vibe.
Yes.
Right? Then when they open up and share, it goes, okay, this puts a different picture on something. Do you see what I'm saying? Versus going into a party and it's like, oh, yeah. And it's like, whoa, wait, what? Because people are trying to match a picture and, you know what I mean, positive or negative energy. They're trying to locate too much. And that's where I'm kind of like, you know, it isn't for everybody.
No, but let me tell you, Mia, statistically, public data says that neither is monogamous marriage. And people who are in open relationships like me and my ex do not get divorced because of the openness. We get divorced because we're not a good fit and we have different goals in life. And people who are anti-poly, anti-open, people who are conservative and monogamous, they don't get divorced because of affairs. They get divorced because they were not a match and they wanted different things from life. So I think that monogamous couples cite sexual openness as the problem, but it is never the problem. I mean, we know this. When people have affairs, it's because there was a fucking problem there anyway. So when
I hear no, that's exactly
when Penelope Cruz, also, folks, this is a spoiler. My favorite moment in line in the movie is when she fucking devastates them and she says, "I think this relationship is over, but I'm not your therapist."
Oh. But I'm not your therapist.
And she gets up.
She did read.
She just takes that script and she just like fucks it and leaves it on the ground. I mean, this group of people, and you know what? Good for you, Olivia Wilde. Let's go back to her just for a second, Mia, because she did Booksmart, which was genius. She did Don't Worry, Darling, which didn't work. She got ruined by the press. She had the gall and the gumption and the talent and the risk to do this picture, which was like 4 people in a room, and she played a married character whose marriage is on the rocks. That takes I wouldn't say balls. That takes vagina. That takes real heart. She did this, and she plays a broken character, and she directed it, and she helped edit it in London for 6 months, and she gives up the glory to these other actors. She is a director to watch. I am telling you, we have not seen the end of her. This was an amazing picture. Booksmart was amazing. She has what Greta Gerwig wishes she had a tenth of, and you can put me on the record, Mia, for saying that.
I was gonna say he's got to.
Barbie is fucking garbage. This is powerful female filmmaking.
I like Barbie.
Yes,
we're gonna leave
Mia.
Barbie alone.
No, I won't leave Barbie
He said
alone.
yes.
Barbie was trash.
He said we won't leave it alone. But no, okay. Here's the thing, though. Did you feel the ending was earned? Like, I mean, we get to this point. He's fallen out. His back is hurt. She gives him the read.
Fuck him. I hope he ends up in a wheelchair. I would push him down the street in a wheelchair. In San Francisco in a wheelchair? Perfect. He'll end up in the Bay. All of our problems will be solved. Okay, so let's... No, you raised a good point, Mia. So at the end, Peanut and Hawk leave, and Joe and Angela are there. This is Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde. Finally, he goes to the piano and starts to play. I think it's kind of dumb movie stuff. Listen, endings are really tough. He's tinkling on the piano, which he hasn't done in years because he's depressed, boring. She comes up next to him and she puts her head on his shoulder. By the way, listener and Mia, I think that loops back to the beginning. The very beginning, when you see the title credits, you don't see their faces. You just hear his stupid laugh. I think that they were laughing at the end. Do they stay together? No, I think he's too much of a depressed. I think he is Chiwetel Ejiofor from Backrooms when he says, "No, I want to stay here in my misery." I don't think Seth Rogen changes, but I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think that they immediately rush off for divorce. I think it's about a month and another kind of like crisis sort of event night day, birthday, whatever,
Yeah,
give it to
right.
me. I think then she's going to want the divorce, and I don't think he'll ever be able to accept it, but it will happen. And I think that seeing how they were in a sense in this film, it's not like a completely cold and like heartless energy between them. There is a dynamic where I'm like, they'll be decent enough co parents. And I think she'll actually get into the work that maybe is a little bit how she wants to connect with the world.
Yeah.
So I think it's not going to be one of those things where she's going to want a divorce, but she's going to know that the marriage can't be better as long as they're married.
Yeah.
And I think they'll separate. I also don't think Hawk and Peanut are still together.
I agree, but I think that that's a joyous quote unquote uncoupling, you could say. I think that they're so mature that if she says, "Hey, Vanessa and I have a super hot connection, I think I might want to go live with her." By the way, that was your idea that I just stole.
Oh, I was like, yeah, her and Vanessa get together.
Yeah, which is great, but I think Hawk is like, you know what? I think that's beautiful. I will raise your comment. My first marriage, and she fell in love with somebody else, and I saw how happy she was with this person, and I said, "Holy shit! I've never seen you this happy. You need to be with them." And I think that's what Hawk would say. I don't mean that as an inverse compliment to me, although I'll take it if you want to give it to me. I just think that. Yeah, I think that maybe neither couple are together, honestly.
They're not together, but I will say this, they could end up living in that apartment for a minute. It's just, like I said, he was a little too no Ann and no but, and it was going to take a little bit more for him before he, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, in other words, the divorce could have caused him to ultimately lose his job, temper tantrums, that kind of bullshit. But the reality is like with his kid, I think he has a shot for some type of change because he can't know Ann and no but with a child,
right?
And then within the divorce, I think that will also grow him up a little bit. And not necessarily going to therapy.
That's interesting.
Doing that.
I mean, do guys like that? Do they ever grow up?
That's not really the question. Because I'm going to tell you, a lot of people don't. Men and women. I mean, it's not like a gender thing. But, do people get to a point where they can stabilize a little bit? And with Seth Rogen, you could see that he wasn't stable. It's just like the littlest things are exasperating both him and his wife's energy.
Yeah.
And so I just think that he can get to a point where he's feeling stable.
Yeah.
And, probably still depressed, but
yeah. No.
I got dinner on Saturday with my daughter.
For sure.
And then I've got music thing going on.
I will tell you that and this is the hallmark of a great picture, by the very end, I didn't care how it ended. End scenes are not movies. That is a very difficult thing. You've got studio notes, you've got the writer, you've got the co-writer, you've got the director, you've got the powerhouses like Cruise and Norton. I don't mind the ending. I didn't really care about it. We mentioned a couple of parallels that you might be interested, obviously. And Wilde has talked about this herself. Mike Nichols, I would say, is the biggest influence. I'm not getting Woody Allen for this. I think this is a much better type of content than Woody Allen. You and I talked about Eyes Wide Shut. By the way, Cruise and Kidman got divorced after the Eyes Wide Shut shoot, which was hugely taxing. We talked about Closer from 2004 with Clive Owen, Julia Roberts, Natalie Portman, and Jude Law. Tough picture, very hard to watch. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, also Nichols from 1966. Why Did I Get Married, which is how couples perform stability in front of one another. There's a lot out there, Mia, but I don't know if you agree, but
you know what, though?
Yeah.
I will add to this list, after you were sharing about the kind of like the improvised elements, I was like, I did get a little Mike Lee in this.
Excellent point.
It does have a little bit of his like surprise, but it's more emotionally straightforward.
Yep.
But still shocking. You know,
Yeah, so just real quick for our listeners, Mike Lee is kind of a legendary but kind of quiet indie director. He's known for Secrets and Lies in 1996, Hard Truths just a couple years ago with Marie Jean Baptiste, 2024, Mr. Turner from 2014, Vera Drake. His pictures are about kind of difficult people, you know. They're not super likable, you know.
Yeah.
That's a great reference, Mia. That's a great reference. But he always
does an element of surprise in his films. So he works very close with the actors and crafting out their characters.
Yes.
There's a very
very
straightforward plot,
yeah.
and everybody's kind of crafted to fill in, but not everybody's in on everybody's you know, secrets and dynamics. So whether you're watching Vera Drake or Secrets and Lies, when you're watching some of the scenes where people are shocked or surprised, like they're really shocked. The actors are really going, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about the Hawk scene with where he got his name and stuff, I'm like, okay, that is a fantastic way to pull in something so simple but so elegant into a piece about relationships.
Excellent.
Which is that a lot of shit feels like a surprise.
And it is surprising, yeah. And other parallels are that it's people talking in rooms, and it's relationships, and it's simple production design. It's zero VFX. It's almost no score. Check out the films of Mike Lee and Mike Nichols for kind of a background sense of what Wilde was going for. We really think that you should see this picture. This is an accomplishment. I mean, are you as excited as I am, Mia, about Olivia Wilde's future as a director?
You know what? For me, I am trying to figure out, are people going to start doing a little bit more of like what we see, you know, coming up with a crew of people you love working with.
Yeah,
that
a team.
You pull together pictures with. And when I think about Olivia Wilde, I'm like, this hits hard. I definitely would be sad if this does not show up with some kind of Oscar nomination. With that said, though, I want her with a team of what's in here.
That's a great idea.
There seems to be a lot of parts working in the way that I think Ryan Coogler knows to do 100%. This. Michael Mann knows to do this. Like they all just they bring back people that help them tell these stories. And so, is it a team effort? No, I think she really put her foot in this. I liked it.
I'm just proud of her. Olivia, if you're listening, just a tremendous job. And listener, we know we pulled a little bit of a switcheroo on you last week at the end of our Disclosure Day episode. We shared that the next episode would be a 2026 look back. But then Mia and I went to the movies and experienced the magic that is the invite, and we said, hey, we got to cover the invite. So instead, next week, we're going to be doing our look back at the first 6 months of 2026, which is now over, if you can believe it. We're headed toward 27 already. And we're going to be doing 3 or 4 minutes, that's it, on all of these different films that we think are worth seeing, including the drama In the Gray, Crime 101, Project Hail Mary, The Devil Wears Prada 2, Mother Mary, Obsession, Is God Is, The Death of Robin Hood, and Tuner. And we hope that you'll be with us next week to run through a quick list of some of the great pictures of 2026 right here on Do You See What I Mean?